Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Love Freedom. Hey! So, it has been a minute. It has been a break. I know. It has been a while, and I am very aware. Thank you to all those who were checking in on me, making sure that everything was okay. Sis just was going through a rough patch, but we're good now. Because God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. So with that being said, let's get into today. Today we're talking about where does God come from? And that is a question I've heard a lot about when it comes to those who don't believe in God or those who think Christianity is just insane. They normally ask, well, where does God come from? And honestly, I didn't know how to answer this question until I put in some work and put in some research for myself. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to share what I learned, and hopefully we'll be able to help others out. And if you are not a Christian and you have found yourself here, maybe this will help answer your question. Hopefully it will. Let's get into it. So in this world, there are three things that have to be coherent with each other in order for something to exist. Time, space, and matter. You cannot have time without matter. You cannot have matter without space. And you cannot have space without time. Example. Me, as a human being, I exist. You can see me. However, if I was not born at a certain place in space, if I was not born at a certain time, you would not know that I existed. How can I be born with no time? How can I be born without having any matter? How can I be born with no space? I can't exist unless those three things come together: time, space, and matter. So I cannot be outside of time, I cannot be outside of space, and I cannot be outside of matter. Because at that point, I do not exist. Well, the question, where does God come from, has to assume that God is inside time, space, and matter. He has to be placed somewhere. He has to have a form of a beginning, and he has to have a form of matter, or physicality, in some sense. But the problem is the God that I serve is immeasurable, meaning he's too big for me to comprehend, and at the same time he can be just small enough to fit into man. He has no beginning, he has no end, meaning he's not affected by time, and he is a spiritual being, meaning that he has no matter. We can all agree that in order to create something, you have to be outside of it. For example, whoever created this pen has to be able to put things together, to know its function, to know its use, to create it and say, okay, this is a pen. This is a pink pen. It's going to produce pink ink, and it will be used for writing or whatever. So asking the question, where does God come from, actually makes no sense, because then it assumes that God is limited to the very things he created. Colossians 1:17 says, "And he himself existed and is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He's the controlling, cohesive force of the universe." This is the Amplified version. So in other words, God created everything outside of time, space, and matter. He had to. If he didn't, he would be limited to those three things, and I don't serve a limited God. Then you have other people that say, well, I know where God came from. God came from the thought of man, that we invented God. We as Christians decided to create God. That doesn't make any sense either. If you were to see a painting, you would know that there was a painter. If you were to see a beautiful garden that was arranged in a very beautiful way and just looked amazing, you would know that there was a gardener. If you were to see a car, a fancy Mercedes, you would know that there is somebody that put this car together. There was a maker of that model. So how can creation say that there is no creator? How can we say that creation made up a creator? That is the same thing as saying that the painting made up the painter. It doesn't really make sense. A lot of us know the Mona Lisa painting. It was painted by a creator named Leonardo da Vinci. A lot of us have never met Leonardo da Vinci, But that doesn't deny the fact that he existed. We see his painting, we see evidence of his creation, so we know he exists. There are people who have met him, there are people who saw what he did, so we know that he exists. In the same way, just because some of us haven't physically seen Jesus Christ, or physically seen God, or physically saw him create certain things, doesn't deny the fact that God or Jesus Christ exists. The bottom line is God is God. God is sovereign. God is all-knowing. God is all-powerful. God is almighty. And God is everywhere at every time. He's outside of time. He's outside of matter. And he is outside of space. Saying that, where does God exist, says that God is inside all these things. And that says that he is limited. And I don't serve a limited God. Why would I want to serve a God that is limited? With that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Don't forget to remember, love God, love others, love yourself, and love freedom. I'll see you next time.